Welcome to part 2 of increment and decrement operators. And in part 2 we're just going to continue our discussion on using increment and decrement operators by jumping out into Visual C++ 2010 Express and actually build a very simple project. I've opened Visual C++ 2010 Express or 2010 Express, and I'm going to tell it to give me a new project. It's going to be a Win32 console application, and I will give it the name increment decrement example. Then I will click OK, and then the little application wizard is going to come up. I'll just choose next here. I'll tell it to give me an empty project and click finish. Now this thing is going to shuck and jive and gyrate, and that's a Southern technical term for configure the application. Alright, well, if I go out into Solution Explorer, and by the way yours could be over here on this side, just mouse over it and click, you will see that there's my project name. And if I come down here to Source Files and right click and choose Add, I'll add a new item. And now I need my C++ module or file, if you will. Notice the .cpp extension, and in that I will just call this one incdec and click Add. That will put it out there and then give me a coding environment or a module to actually write my code in. So what I'm going to do here is put the include statement for IOStream, and this will let me actually write data out to the command window, the console, if you will. And then I will create my int main, my main function, which is where your C++ programs are going to begin execution. Then I'll just give myself some room down here and tell it to return 0. Okay, let's do just a very simple example, and I want to show you how this especially we'll concentrate on increment here. Decrement will work just the same way. Okay, I'm going to create an integer called a and initialize it to be equal to 0, and then I'll create one called b and initialize it to 0. So now I have two variables, a and b, and they're both initialized with a value of 0. Now I'm going to set b equal to plus a. Now we know from the previous video, part 1, that that means a plus 1. Okay, and this is a prefix, so it's going to add 1 to a and assign it to b before it does the entire operation. Okay, and so then what I'm going to do is come down here, and we're just going to do a standard cout. This will write something out to the console, and we'll give ourselves a note here, a equals, and then we'll just put our variable a, and then let me put the right symbols in there. We'll call the standard namespace again and do an end line. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing again. Let's do it the same spacing so it's a little easier on the I, and we'll put B. Did the same error again. You'll notice you do that a lot, and typing and talking is tough, let me tell you. Okay, so there's our example. Now to actually run this and build it, we'll come up here and choose to actually run this in debug, and it'll ask me if I want to build it, and I'll say yes. And if I didn't fat finger anything or offend the compiler, we should compile up just fine. That little flash there, it actually ran, but you couldn't see it in the window. Now the way we're going to run this is we're going to jump out to our libraries here, and I'm going to double click on Documents, and notice I see Visual Studio 2010. Now you have to find this folder. If you take the defaults when you install the Visual C++, this is where it will go. Open that up, go to Projects, and somewhere in there you will see Increment Decrement Example. Just open that, and I want you to notice that the executable file that I need is actually in the debug folder right inside that project. So this is what I want to run, so I'm going to back out. And since I am in Windows 7, there's a neat shortcut. I can just hold down my Shift key, right click on the debug folder, and say Open Command Window here, and it opens a command window with that path already there. Okay, and so then all I have to do is type, actually I'll just type dir so you can see where we are, and see there's my increment decrement example exe. So I will clear the screen, CLS, and then just spell that out, increment decrement example, and run it, and you'll notice A equals 1 and B equals 1. Okay, so prefix, that meant add 1 to A, okay, first, and then load it into B, and everything worked fine. Okay, so now let's go back and make one minor change here. Let's take the two pluses and let's just move them to the right side of A. All right, I did that with a mouse trick. You can, space them out or delete them out and add them to the other side. I just highlighted and then drug. Okay, now what this is going to do is something totally different. So let's compile this and take a look. Now this is a postfix. The other was prefix. This is a postfix increment, and so we'll jump right back out to our command window. We will grab our increment decrement command, and notice this time A is equal to 1, B is equal to 0. Now that's kind of odd. What happened? Well, notice we said set A, since this is postfix, it set A equal to B first, and then after that operation had happened, then it incremented A. So it set A equal to B when A was still equal to 0, then it incremented A, and so that is why we ended up with B equals 0, A equals 1. So there is a real good clean example, and that should help you get your head around the difference between prefix and postfix, whether you're doing incrementing or decrementing.